The UPS driver was laughing when he delivered 50 bottles of Dom Perignon to my front door. $8,000 worth of champagne with my son's name on the receipt. Marcus Walker, Pool Party Supplies. I thought my boy was building his tech startup in Canada, working 20-hour days to make us both proud. But Mrs. Patterson from next door saw the delivery and smiled that knowing smile. "Logan, your son sure knows how to celebrate success," she said, loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. That's when I realized the bitter truth. Marcus wasn't in Toronto building our future. He was in Beverly Hills, throwing parties with my money. I stood there holding that expensive bottle, my mortgage papers still on the kitchen table from when I refinanced our family home to fund his business. The champagne felt cold in my hands, but my blood ran even colder. I'm Logan Walker, and I spent 30 years building Walker Construction from nothing. But I was about to learn that sometimes loving your child means letting them fall hard enough to remember how to stand up on their own. But before I tell you what I discovered in those champagne boxes, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about family justice and quiet revenge. My father died when I was 12 years old, heart attack at 43, right there on our front porch after a 16-hour shift at the steel mill. I watched my mother work 3 jobs just to keep food on our table. Cleaning offices at night, waiting tables during lunch rush, taking in laundry on weekends. Her hands were always raw and cracked from harsh detergents and constant scrubbing. I made myself a promise that day, standing at my father's grave in the rain. My son would never feel that kind of desperation, never wonder if his dad loved him enough to sacrifice everything for his future. Never go to bed hungry or wear secondhand clothes to school while other kids whispered behind his back. I kept that promise too well, but I didn't know I was creating something worse than poverty. Marcus was born when I was 25. I already had my contractor's license by then, working 18-hour days to build something bigger than myself. Walker Construction started in our garage with a used pickup truck, a toolbox full of determination, and dreams that tasted like sawdust and possibility. Every penny went back into the business. Every job was a chance to prove that a dead steelworker's son could build something lasting. I wanted Marcus to see me as successful, not like my own father, who came home exhausted and empty-handed every night, smelling of molten metal and broken dreams. I wanted my son to believe his father was a man who made things happen. I thought I was building him a foundation. I was actually building him a throne. By the time Marcus was 10, Walker Construction was pulling in decent money. Real money, not the paycheck-to-paycheck survival I'd grown up with. By the time he was 15, we were a multi-million-dollar operation with 40 employees and contracts across 3 states. I bought him everything: private school tuition at St. Mark's Academy, sports cars at 16, college funds that could have fed entire families for years. The boy never heard the word no from me, not once in his entire privileged life. When other fathers talked about teaching their kids the value of money, I smiled and wrote another check. When Marcus wanted the latest iPhone, the most expensive sneakers, spring break trips to Europe with his friends, I said yes to everything. Other parents called me spoiled. I called it love. I thought that was love. I was wrong about everything. Marcus graduated from Northwestern with a business degree I paid for. Twice, actually, so he failed out junior year, blamed his professors for being too traditional in their thinking, said they didn't understand innovation, didn't appreciate his entrepreneurial vision. The dean's letter suggested Marcus lacked focus and discipline. I saw it as evidence that brilliant minds often struggled in conventional systems. I wrote another $60,000 check and he tried again. The graduation photos show him smiling, arms around friends whose parents probably spent half what I did on their education. But Marcus deserved the best. That's what I told myself every time I signed another tuition payment, every time I covered another emergency expense. Textbooks he never bought, meal plans he never used, study abroad programs that seem more abroad than study. The first red flags were just gentle breezes then. After college came the string of failed ventures, each one presenting itself as the opportunity of a lifetime. A gourmet food truck that never served food. Marcus said the permit process was too bureaucratic. The city wasn't ready for his fusion cuisine concept. $50,000 down the drain, plus another 20 for the custom-wrapped truck that sat in our driveway for 6 months before I finally sold it for scrap. Then came cryptocurrency trading, where he lost another 30 grand in 2 months. The market's just volatile, Dad. This is how wealth is built. You have to think long-term, not like traditional business. He'd started catching himself before saying, not like construction work, but the implication hung in the air like sawdust. My life's work wasn't sophisticated enough for his financial genius. Each failure came with the same explanation. The world wasn't ready for his vision. The NFT project was next. Marcus needed $40,000 for digital asset development, whatever that meant. When I asked to see the business plan, he got defensive. Accused me of not trusting him, of being stuck in old school thinking. That stung more than losing the money when the whole thing collapsed 6 months later. Dad, you're thinking like a contractor, he'd say whenever I asked questions about revenue models or target markets. This is the future. Blockchain technology, decentralized finance. Trust me. The words always came with that patronizing smile, like he was explaining quantum physics to a child. And like a fool, I kept trusting. But it wasn't just the money. It was watching my son develop this entitled attitude, this assumption that success would come without struggle. He'd never worked a real job, never felt the satisfaction of earning his first paycheck, never understood the connection between effort and reward. I told myself he was different from my generation, smarter, more sophisticated. The internet had created opportunities I couldn't even imagine. I was making excuses for watching my son become someone I didn't recognize. Then came the phone call that changed everything. Marcus, voice trembling with excitement, telling me about his breakthrough idea, an AI-powered logistics company that would revolutionize shipping and supply chain management. He'd found partners in Canada, government incentives, the whole package. This is it, Dad. This is our generational wealth moment, the kind of opportunity that comes once in a lifetime. Our moment. Like he'd lifted a hammer once in his life. He needed $1.2 million for startup costs and first-year operations. The number hit my chest like a sledgehammer. That was real money, even for someone who'd built a successful construction business from nothing. That was mortgage the house money, retirement fund money, legacy money. But when I heard the excitement in his voice, the same tone he'd had as a kid showing me his drawings of skyscrapers and bridges he wanted to build someday, my heart overruled my head. This was my son, asking for help to achieve his dreams. How could I say no? I thought I was investing in our future. I was financing my own destruction. The meeting with my lawyer, Robert Thompson, should have been a warning. Thompson had handled my business contracts for 15 years, helped me navigate everything from worker compensation claims to municipal building codes. He was careful, methodical, the kind of man who read every line twice and questioned every assumption. His office smelled like leather-bound law books and expensive coffee. Oak desk bigger than most people's dining tables, diplomas covering one entire wall like armor against poor decisions. Thompson wore suits that cost more than most people's monthly salary, but he'd earned every thread. "Logan, this documentation looks more like a partnership than a loan," he said, adjusting his glasses as he reviewed Marcus's paperwork. "If you're putting up this kind of money, you need protection. Real protection. Not just a handshake and hope." I waved him off. "It's my son, Bob. I trust him completely." Those 5 words cost me everything, but Thompson was too good a lawyer to let it slide. "Trust is beautiful, Logan, but business is business, even with family. Especially with family, actually. Some of the ugliest litigation I've handled involved parents and children who thought love was enough protection. He'd seen too many families destroyed by money disputes, too many relationships poisoned by bad business deals between relatives. Let me draft something that protects both of you. Partnership structure, with you as majority investor." I should have listened more carefully to that word, majority. Thompson spent 3 hours drafting the investment agreement. Partnership structure, he called it. 51% controlling interest for me as the primary investor, 49% for Marcus as managing partner. Standard protection for the person putting up the capital, Thompson explained. Silent partner arrangement with dissolution rights, asset recovery provisions, the works. The legal language was dense, full of whereas clauses and heretofore provisions that made my head spin. But Thompson summarized it simply. You own the company. Marcus manages it. If things go bad, you can pull the plug. Marcus barely glanced at the documents before signing. When Thompson slid the 47-page agreement across his massive desk, Marcus flipped through it like it was a magazine. Didn't read the terms, didn't ask questions, didn't even pause at the signature pages. Just scrawled his name with the expensive pen Thompson provided and shook my hand. Thanks for believing in me, Dad. You won't regret this. This is going to change everything for our family. He never read the fine print. That would be his downfall. The money transfer happened on a Tuesday morning that felt like Christmas and a funeral at the same time. I sat in the bank president's office, watching him process the wire for $1.2 million to North Star Logistics, Inc., the account Marcus had set up for our business venture. My life's work, 30 years of early mornings and aching backs and calloused hands, reduced to numbers on a computer screen. Digital wealth flowing from one account to another with the click of a mouse. The bank president, a man named Davidson who'd handled my business accounts for a decade, looked concerned. This is a substantial transfer, Mr. Walker. You're sure about this investment? It's my son's company, our company actually. Davidson nodded but didn't smile. He'd probably seen too many family business deals go wrong, too many fathers who confused love with good judgment. If you need any documentation for tax purposes, or if there are any issues with the partnership structure, let us know. Partnership structure. Those words would echo in my head for months. That was the last time I saw real gratitude in my son's eyes. The first month brought daily updates that felt like Christmas morning phone calls. Marcus calling with excitement about office space in downtown Toronto, equipment purchases, hiring plans for their development team. The team is coming together perfectly, Dad. You're going to love seeing what we've built when you come visit. He sent photos of a sleek office space with glass walls and modern furniture. Young professionals hunched over laptops, whiteboards covered with diagrams and flowcharts. Everything looked expensive and impressive, and exactly what I'd imagined a successful tech startup should look like. But when I asked for the office address to send a congratulatory flower arrangement, he got vague. We're still finalizing the lease details, Dad. You know how commercial real estate works in Canada. Lots of paperwork, regulatory requirements. I'll send you everything once it's all official. Something cold settled in my stomach. I'd dealt with commercial leases for construction projects. They weren't that complicated. Something felt wrong, but I wanted to believe. The second month, his calls became weekly instead of daily, then bi-weekly, always apologizing for being slammed with regulatory paperwork or locked in meetings with government officials about our AI compliance certifications. When I suggested visiting Toronto to see the operation firsthand, Marcus panicked. Dad, that would be amazing, but the timing's terrible right now. We're in the middle of our certification process with Transport Canada. Maybe next month when things calm down. I want you to see us when we're really hitting our stride. Next month never came. By month 3, I was checking business registries online at 2 a.m, unable to sleep for the gnawing worry in my gut. Searching for North Star Logistics in Canadian databases. Looking for any trace of the company that had swallowed my life savings. The company existed on paper. Marcus had filed the proper incorporation documents. But there were no business licenses, no employee registrations, no physical addresses listed anywhere I could find. Just a shell company with my money inside it, like a beautiful box with nothing but emptiness inside. My contractor's instincts finally kicked in. Too little, too late. That's when I made the fake Instagram account, called myself Mike Chicago 2024, and started following Marcus's social media like a detective investigating his own son. What I found made my hands shake so badly I nearly dropped my phone. Photos from Malibu beaches, Marcus tanned and smiling in designer swimwear that probably cost more than my monthly truck payment. Expensive restaurants in Beverly Hills where dinner for two ran into four figures. Marcus wearing a Rolex Submariner I'd never seen before, standing next to a blonde woman in clothes that screamed money. The geotag said Los Angeles, not Toronto. Every single post. Every picture was a knife in my back. The most recent post showed Marcus raising a glass of wine that probably cost more than most people's car payments. Caption, living the dream in LA, hatched blessed, hashtag entrepreneur life, hashtag success mindset. Posted 3 hours after he'd texted me about working late in his Toronto office, dealing with regulatory compliance issues. The comments underneath were even worse. Friends congratulating him on his business success, asking about investment opportunities, praising his vision and hustle. One comment stopped my heart. Bro, your pool parties are legendary. When's the next one? Pool parties? With my retirement fund. I called him immediately, my heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. Son, I'm looking at pictures of you in Los Angeles. Silence. Then nervous laughter that sounded like breaking glass. Dad, you're following my Instagram now? Those are old photos. I just posted them because my feed looked too boring. You know how social media works, right? It's all about maintaining your brand presence. The lie came so easily, so smoothly, like he'd been practicing for months. Old photos from when, Marcus? From before the business started. Look, I really can't talk right now. Big client meeting with a potential Fortune 500 partner. Can we catch up this weekend? He hung up before I could respond, leaving me staring at my phone like it had bitten me. That's when I knew I'd been raising a stranger. But the lies were just getting started. The demands for more money began the following week, each request accompanied by increasingly elaborate explanations. Dad, we need another $150,000 for expansion. Canadian tax requirements are higher than we projected, and we have to maintain certain capital reserves to keep our business licenses active. I said no for the first time in his adult life. Marcus didn't handle rejection well. You're sabotaging our success, he screamed over the phone, his voice cracking with rage. I'm working 20-hour days to build something for both of us, and you're worried about money? This is our future we're talking about. Our future. Always our future when he needed something. Never his responsibility when things went wrong. Never his money being risked. I can't believe you don't trust me after everything. After all the sacrifice I've put into this company. Do you know how hard I'm working while you're sitting at home questioning my every move? The audacity took my breath away. He was lecturing me about hard work while spending my life savings on champagne and jewelry, accusing me of sabotage while lying about his location, his activities, his entire existence. But I gave him $50,000 anyway. God help me. I was still hoping the son I'd raised was buried somewhere underneath this entitled stranger. I was still trying to save someone who was already gone. The girlfriend's social media made everything worse. Her name was Cassandra Martinez, blonde, 25, clearly expensive to maintain. She posted constantly about their adventures. Private dinners at Nobu where appetizers cost more than most people's weekly grocery budget. Shopping sprees on Rodeo Drive where single purchases exceeded my monthly truck payment. Weekend trips to Napa Valley with bottles of wine that cost more than skilled tradesmen made in a day. One photo showed her wearing a Cartier love bracelet that I knew cost at least $25,000. The caption made my stomach turn. When your man knows how to treat a lady right. Hashtag spoiled. Jat blessed. Cartier. Love. Living my best life. She was wearing my retirement fund on her wrist. The comments underneath were a chorus of envy and admiration. Goals. Your man has taste. Living the dream. None of them knew they were praising a jewelry purchase made with a father's life savings. My church friends started asking questions, gentle inquiries at coffee hour about Marcus's success in Canada. Had I seen the photos of his girlfriend's expensive gifts? Wasn't it wonderful how well his business was doing? The pity in their voices was worse than the curiosity. They could see what I refused to admit, that my son was making a fool of me in public, spending my money while I bragged about his business acumen to anyone who would listen. Eleanor Patterson pulled me aside after Sunday service, her face full of the careful mild concern that meant everyone was talking. "Logan, honey, I hope you don't mind me asking, but some of the ladies have seen Marcus's girlfriend's social media posts. Those are some very expensive gifts she's showing off." "It's a successful business, Eleanor. Marcus works very hard." "I'm sure he does, dear. It's just, well, we all know how much you've sacrificed for that boy. We just want to make sure you're taking care of yourself, too." The kindness in her voice almost broke me. These people had watched me build my business from nothing, had seen me work through injuries and exhaustion to provide for my family. Now they were watching my son spend that legacy on status symbols while I made excuses for his success. Public humiliation wrapped in neighborly concern. The breaking point came on a Thursday night that I'll remember until I die. Marcus called me at 11 p.m., drunk and laughing. I could hear party sounds in the background, expensive wine being poured, people talking loudly about investments in real estate and startup valuations. "Dad," he slurred into the phone, "you should be here. This party is incredible. Everyone's talking about how successful North Star is becoming. We're the toast of the LA tech scene." Success built on my sweat and sacrifice. "Marcus, where exactly are you?" "At the networking event, building relationships for our business. You'd be so proud of how respected we are in the startup community. People are asking about investment opportunities." In the background, I heard Cassandra's voice, high and excited. "Baby, tell your dad about the Dom Perignon. Show him how we celebrate success." More laughter, and the sound of champagne corks popping. Voices raised in toast to Marcus's vision and brilliance. That's when I decided to do some real investigating. I hired a private investigator the next morning. Cost me $500 for a basic background check on my own son, which felt like the saddest transaction of my adult life. The investigator's name was Rebecca Chen, a former police detective who specialized in financial fraud cases. Her office was small and functional, nothing like the glossy corporate spaces Marcus had shown me in his fake business photos. "Mr. Walker, I have to ask, are you sure you want this information? Sometimes families are better off not knowing certain truths." "I need to know who my son really is." The report came back 3 days later, delivered in a manila envelope that felt heavy as a death certificate. Marcus Walker, age 32. Current residence, 1247 Sunset Plaza. Drive, Beverly Hills, California. $15,000 monthly rental. Occupation, unemployed. No business operations detected. No employees. No office space. No clients. The startup was a lie. Everything was a lie. But the photos were what destroyed me. Rebecca had included surveillance shots of Marcus at poolside parties, expensive restaurants, luxury car dealerships, all funded by the partnership account that I legally controlled but had never monitored. One photo showed Marcus and Cassandra at a Beverly Hills Porsche dealer, signing paperwork for a bright red 911 Turbo. Lease payment, $4,000 per month. Another showed them at Tiffany & Co., Marcus pointing at engagement rings that cost more than most people's houses. My son was shopping for engagement rings with money I'd earned mixing concrete. The investigator's notes were clinical and devastating. Subject maintains no business operations despite claims of running AI logistics company. Spends approximately $40,000 monthly on luxury lifestyle items including fine dining, designer clothing, jewelry, and entertainment. No evidence of any legitimate business activity. $40,000 monthly, almost $500,000 per year. My life's work being converted into champagne and status symbols at a rate that would empty my accounts within 2 years. But Marcus didn't know about the partnership agreement's fine print. I pulled out the documents Thompson had drafted 8 months earlier. 51 pages of legal documentation that Marcus had signed without reading, each clause carefully constructed to protect me from my own generosity. Partnership dissolution clause, asset recovery provisions, 24-hour termination notice, complete control over all business accounts and credit lines. My son thought he was smarter than his old man. He was about to learn better. That night, I sat in my home office, surrounded by the evidence of Marcus's betrayal. Surveillance photos spread across my desk like cards in a losing hand. Bank statements showing regular transfers to luxury vendors. Social media printouts documenting a lifestyle built on lies. But the worst part wasn't the money. It was the realization that my son had become someone I didn't recognize. Someone who could look me in the eye and lie with practiced ease. Someone who saw my love as weakness to exploit. I'd raised a parasite. The phone rang at midnight. Marcus, calling from what sounded like another party. Dad, just wanted to check in. Business is going amazing. We just signed our first major client. Can't give you details yet because of NDAs, but this is going to change everything. More lies delivered with cheerful confidence. Marcus, what's the client's name? I told you, Dad, NDA restrictions, but they're Fortune 100, massive logistics operation, exactly the kind of partnership we've been building toward. What's your office address in Toronto? Why do you need that? Are you planning to visit? Because that would be amazing, but we're renovating right now, expanding into the suite next door. Maybe wait until... What's the address, son? Silence. Then the sound of him cupping the phone, probably asking Cassandra what to say. Look, Dad, I have to go. Client dinner starting soon. Let's talk this weekend when I have more time, okay? He hung up without waiting for my response. That's when I made my decision. I called Thompson's office first thing Friday morning. Bob, I need to dissolve the partnership today. Logan, are you sure? This will be financially devastating for Marcus. He'll lose everything. I thought about the Dom Perignon parties and the Cartier jewelry and the Porsche lease payments. About 8 months of lies told with a straight face. About my retirement fund being converted into Instagram posts and social media bragging rights. Good. Maybe devastation will teach him what gratitude couldn't. Thompson's office had marble floors and floor-to-ceiling law books, and the kind of serious atmosphere that made important decisions feel permanent. We spent 2 hours reviewing the dissolution process, going through every clause Marcus had signed without reading. According to the partnership agreement, you can terminate with 24 hours written notice, Thompson explained. All business assets revert to majority ownership. That's you, bank accounts, credit lines, outstanding leases, everything. How long before it takes effect? The moment we file with the court clerk. I can have the paperwork ready by noon. I thought about Marcus, probably sleeping off last night's party and his $15,000 per month rental, dreaming about tonight's celebration surrounded by people who would disappear the moment his credit card stopped working. One more thing, Logan. Once we do this, there's no going back. The partnership will be completely dissolved, and Marcus will have no legal claim to any business assets. Do it. The paperwork was thicker than Marcus's original business plan had been. Partnership dissolution, asset recovery orders, account freeze authorizations, credit line terminations, each page stamped and notarized, making it official and irreversible. North Star Logistics would cease to exist at 2 p.m. that afternoon. Marcus would cease to be a CEO at the same time. Thompson's clerk hand-delivered the legal notice to Marcus's Beverly Hills address at 1:30 p.m. Pacific Time. Certified mail, signature required, legal service complete. The countdown started the moment Marcus signed for that envelope. I drove home and waited for my phone to ring. It didn't take long. 11:47 a.m. Pacific Time. My phone lit up with Marcus's number, the ringtone cutting through the silence of my kitchen like an alarm bell. Dad, something's wrong with my credit cards. They're all being declined. His voice was high and panicked, the entitled confidence completely gone. The bank says there's a freeze on all my accounts. I can't access any of the business money. I let him talk for 30 seconds, listening to the fear creep into his voice as reality began to sink in. Marcus, did you read your legal notice? What legal notice? Dad, what's happening? I have vendors to pay for tonight's party. People are flying in from all over the country. I've got a caterer, a DJ, security deposit on the venue. Read the notice, son. Silence. Then rustling papers. Then a sound I'd never heard from Marcus before. Genuine terror. Partnership dissolution? Dad, you can't do this. This is our business, our future. Read section 12, subsection 4. More silence. I could picture him scanning the legal language, his face growing pale as the words registered. Probably standing in that expensive rental house, surrounded by luxury he'd never actually earned. You own 51%? I've always owned 51%. You signed the agreement without reading it. But you said this was a loan. You said you were supporting my business. I was supporting our partnership, which I'm now dissolving. Marcus started crying. Actual tears. Dad, please. There has to be another way. I can change. I can be better. I'll move back home. I'll work for the construction company. Anything. Too late for apologies. 8 months too late for promises about changing. Too late for anything except consequences. Marcus, you have 24 hours to vacate the rental property and return any business assets. The dissolution is final. What about my life here? My friends? My girlfriend? What about the $1.2 million you spent on champagne and jewelry? Silence. Then the sound of someone who'd finally run out of lies, run out of excuses, run out of other people's money to spend. I was going to pay it back once the business took off. Once we started generating real revenue. There is no business. There never was a business. Dad, I'm your son. Yes, and I love you too much to let you destroy yourself. The words hung between us like a bridge neither of us knew how to cross. Love and disappointment and consequences all tangled together in ways that couldn't be undone. I hung up and turned off my phone. The next few hours felt like waiting for surgery results. I sat in my workshop, organizing tools that didn't need organizing, trying not to think about what Marcus was going through. The panic, the scrambling, the desperate phone calls to friends who would suddenly be unavailable. But then I remembered the Dom Perignon boxes still sitting in my garage, the party invitations with their glossy lies, the social media videos where he mocked my old-school work ethic while spending money I'd earned with my hands. Sympathy died pretty quickly after that. Thompson called at 4 p.m. with the first updates. The bank accounts are frozen. Outstanding credit balances total approximately $67,000 across multiple cards. The Beverly Hills lease has been terminated. It was guaranteed by partnership credit. Marcus has until tomorrow at 2 p.m. to remove his personal belongings. What about the girlfriend? Cassandra Martinez moved out this morning, took her jewelry and left. Neighbors reported seeing her loading suitcases into a BMW that wasn't registered to either of them. Fair weather friends disappear fast when the weather changes. The party guests started calling Marcus around 5 p.m., according to the investigator I'd kept on retainer. 100 confused socialites wondering why their host wasn't returning calls about tonight's success celebration, catering companies demanding payment for services already rendered, security deposits evaporating along with Marcus's credit rating. By evening, hashtag Marcus Walker Party was trending on local LA social media. People posting confused messages. Anyone know what happened to the North Star party? Marcus Walker ghosted his own event? Major Beverly Hills party canceled last minute. What's the tea? Public humiliation was just beginning. The investigator's evening report painted a picture of complete social collapse. Marcus had spent the afternoon making desperate phone calls to friends who suddenly weren't answering. Cassandra had blocked him on all social media. The Porsche dealer had already dispatched a tow truck to repossess the red 911 Turbo. Marcus tried calling me 17 times that evening. I let every call go to voicemail, listening to his messages, like forensic evidence of a personality dissolving under pressure. Dad, I'm sorry. I know I messed up. Please call me back. This is insane. You're destroying your own son over money. I'm sleeping in my car, Dad, in a parking garage. Please. I listened to every message, felt nothing but exhaustion. The voicemails got longer as the evening progressed, each one more desperate than the last. Dad, I understand now. I understand what I did wrong. The money, the lying, the disrespect. I see it all clearly now. I was wrong about everything. About business, about success, about what really matters. Please just give me one chance to make this right. Words he should have found 8 months earlier. The last message came at 2 a.m., Marcus's voice barely above a whisper. Dad, I know you're not going to answer, but I need to say this. You were right. About work, about earning things, about not taking shortcuts. I spent 32 years learning the wrong lessons, and I'm finally understanding what you tried to teach me. I just hope it's not too late to become the son you deserved. For a moment, my resolve almost cracked, but then I remembered the invoice for $8,000 worth of champagne, the Cartier bracelet on his girlfriend's wrist, the months of lies delivered with practiced sincerity, the complete disrespect for everything I'd sacrificed to give him opportunities he'd squandered. Love and consequences could coexist. The investigator's final report of the day arrived by email at midnight. Marcus Walker, last seen loading suitcases into a rented Honda Civic outside his former Beverly Hills address. Current location unknown, credit rating destroyed, business reputation ruined throughout Los Angeles startup community, all social media accounts deactivated. Cassandra Martinez photographed entering a Malibu beach house with an older man driving a Ferrari. The party venue had been cleaned and reset for someone else's celebration. Mission accomplished. I poured myself a scotch, good scotch, not Dom Perignon champagne, and sat on my back porch. The neighborhood was quiet. No more deliveries of expensive party supplies. No more neighbors asking about my successful son with mixtures of admiration and pity. Just peace. The kind of peace that comes from finally matching your actions to your values. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Tonight, justice felt complete. But sleep still wouldn't come. I kept thinking about that scared voice in the final voicemail, the genuine remorse that might or might not be real. Had I saved my son from his own destructive path, or had I just destroyed whatever relationship we might have salvaged? Sometimes the right choice feels like the wrong choice, until time proves otherwise. I slept better the next morning than I had in 8 months. No anxiety dreams about money disappearing into Marcus's accounts. No middle-of-the-night worry about lies I was too scared to investigate. No phone calls about emergency business expenses or unexpected regulatory fees. Just the sleep of a man who'd finally stopped enabling his own destruction. Thompson called at 9 a.m. with the cleanup details. Asset recovery is nearly complete. We've reclaimed $180,000 from unfrozen accounts. The credit companies are writing off Marcus's outstanding balances as business losses. Legally, he owes nothing, but he also owns nothing. What about the rental house? Cleared out yesterday evening. Property management says Marcus left the keys with security and drove away in an old Honda Civic. No forwarding address. He seemed subdued, according to the security guard. Clean break. Exactly what I'd wanted. But sitting at my kitchen table that morning, looking at Marcus's childhood photos still magneted to my refrigerator, the victory felt complicated. This was still my son. Still the little boy who used to fall asleep in my lap while I read him stories about hard-working heroes who earned their happy endings. The photos showed a different child than the man I'd just financially destroyed. Marcus, at age 7, wearing a tiny hard hat at one of my construction sites, grinning like he owned the world. Marcus, at 12, helping me install a deck for elderly neighbors, proud of the calluses forming on his soft hands. When had I stopped teaching him that work was noble? Love doesn't disappear just because trust does. I spent the morning walking through my house, seeing it clearly for the first time in years. No more anxiety about mortgage payments or retirement security. No more wondering whether my son respected the work that built his opportunities. No more midnight calculations about how long my savings could fund his lifestyle. The house felt lighter somehow, cleaner, like I'd been carrying an invisible weight that had finally been lifted. I'd been carrying Marcus's financial and emotional weight for so long I'd forgotten what freedom felt like. But the afternoon brought unexpected complications. Mrs. Patterson knocked around lunchtime, carrying her concerned neighbor expression and a plate of chocolate chip cookies that smelled like childhood comfort. Logan, I heard about Marcus's business troubles. The internet is buzzing with canceled party stories and people asking what happened to North Star Logistics. Are you all right? News traveled fast in small communities, especially when it involved expensive champagne deliveries and sudden financial collapses. Marcus's public failure was probably the neighborhood's biggest scandal since the Henderson divorce 3 years earlier. I'm fine, Eleanor. Sometimes tough love is the only love that works. You did the right thing. We all saw what was happening. What do you mean? Honey, expensive champagne deliveries while his father drives a 15-year-old pickup truck? Girlfriend posting pictures of jewelry that costs more than most people's cars? We're not stupid. We just didn't know how to say anything without seeming nosy. The admission hit me harder than I'd expected. My neighbors had been watching my son humiliate me in public for months, feeling sorry for me while I bragged about his business success. Everyone had seen it. Everyone except me. We kept hoping you'd figure it out on your own, Eleanor continued. But when that champagne delivery happened, with you looking so shocked and hurt, we all felt terrible for you. The kindness in her voice almost broke me. These people had watched me work for 3 decades, had seen me build something from nothing through honest labor. Now they'd watch my son treat that legacy like a personal ATM while I made excuses for his success. Public humiliation disguised as parental pride. The afternoon brought a different kind of phone call. Marcus, but calmer now. Defeated instead of desperate. Resigned instead of panicked. Dad, I'm in Phoenix, staying at a motel near the airport. How did you get to Phoenix? Drove all night. Needed to get away from LA before word spreads more than it already has. Before every failed startup founder and wannabe entrepreneur in the city knows I'm a fraud. Word about what? About the party getting canceled. About North Star being fake. About me being what I am. For the first time in years, Marcus sounded genuinely humble. Not manipulative humble, not performing remorse to get something he wanted, just broken down to something honest. I know you'll probably hang up, but I wanted to say something. I was wrong. About everything. About the money, about lying to you, about thinking I was smarter than honest work. I didn't hang up. The last 8 months, I convinced myself I was building something real, Marcus continued, his voice smaller than I'd heard it since childhood. That the lifestyle was just temporary, until the business took off. But there was no business. Just me spending your money and pretending it made me important. Marcus, let me finish. Please, I need to say this. Silence. Then my son's voice, raw with something that sounded like genuine remorse. You worked 30 years to build Walker Construction. 30 years of 5 a.m. wake-up calls and back-breaking labor and dealing with contractors who tried to cheat you. And I spent your life savings on champagne and jewelry for a girl who left the moment the money stopped. Yes, you did. I don't know how to fix this, Dad. I don't know how to become the man you deserved as a son. You start by getting a job, a real job, 40 hours a week, honest work, earning your own money. I've never had a real job. I know, that was my mistake too. The admission felt like swallowing glass. I'd enabled his entitlement by removing every obstacle from his path, by saying yes to every request, by never letting him experience the satisfaction of earning something through effort. Can I call you again? In a few months? When I have something real to show you? The question hung between us like a bridge neither of us was sure would hold weight. Marcus, I love you. I always will, but love isn't the same as trust. I know. Call me when you've worked somewhere for 6 months, when you can pay your own rent and buy your own food and support yourself like an adult. And if I do that, then we'll see what kind of man you've become. I hung up gently this time, not in anger, but with something that might eventually become hope. 6 months, time enough for real change or comfortable lies. 6 months after that conversation, I got an unexpected call from the investigator I'd kept on retainer. Mr. Walker, thought you'd want to know. Your son's been promoted to crew leader at Phoenix Construction Services. 18 months of steady work, no missed debuts, good reviews from supervisors. 18 months. He'd exceeded my 6-month requirement by an entire year, but I still didn't call. Another 6 months passed before Marcus reached out again. This time his voice carried something I hadn't heard since his childhood. Genuine pride and honest accomplishment. Dad, I know this might sound crazy, but I bought a house. Small place, nothing fancy, but I bought it with money I earned myself. No loans, no investors, no lies. Tell me about it. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, everything square and level and done right. I did most of the finish work myself. Crew taught me plumbing and electrical. Turns out I'm better with my hands than I ever was with spreadsheets. The pride in his voice was unmistakable. 2 weeks later, I drove to Phoenix, not to check up on Marcus, but because he'd invited me to see something he had built. The house was small but solid. Everything square and level, like he had said. Fresh paint, straight lines, honest work visible in every corner. Marcus had done this with his own hands, with skills learned through effort instead of inherited through privilege. No mortgage, no investors, no lies. Dad, there's something I want to show you. He led me to the 2nd bedroom, converted into a simple office. On the desk sat a framed photo I recognized. Me at a Walker construction job site, covered in dust and grinning like I owned the world. I found it when I was packing to leave LA. You'd just finished the Morrison house, ahead of schedule and under budget. You looked so proud of building something real. I remember. I want to feel that way someday. Proud of something I actually built instead of something I just bought with other people's money. We sat at his kitchen table that evening, eating spaghetti he'd cooked himself. Nothing fancy, but it tasted like honesty and hope. Dad, I know we can't go back. Can't undo what I did or who I was. But maybe we can go forward? I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a sealed envelope. I wrote this the night I dissolved the partnership. Been carrying it around ever since. Marcus opened it carefully. Inside, 2 sentences in my handwriting. Son, I love you too much to let you destroy yourself. Real love sometimes means saying no. Marcus read it twice, then looked up with tears in his eyes. Keep it, I said. Reminder that the hardest thing about being a father is knowing when to let go. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is letting them fall far enough to remember how to stand.